Hello, how's it going? So, have you ever wondered how Monnify actually implement their authentication feature, the strategy they actually use, and how it actually works on the back end? So, today I'm going to show you how everything actually works, how they actually implement their authentication strategy, having different authentication system for their Monnify website and their API reference. So, let's see how that actually works. Yes. So, from the documentation here, you can see they have like the how you need to like access their resource, all these various endpoints that they have here. So you need to like pass an authorization, then the basic uh, key. I mean, so authorization, then it has to have basic, then in basis 4 of your API key and your secret key. So that's the authentication for the API resource that we will actually implement. So that's for the API reference. So for the Monnify website, they actually use the authentication. When users logs in, they get an access token, so you can have access to this web platform. So to get the access token to use for your API, there are some steps you usually like go through before you can get access to that access token. So for one, we need to like create an authentication system for the web, then an authentication system for the API reference. So to do that, we actually use this authentication strategy they actually use. I mean, I'm not sure, but it's what I kind of, because I like reverse engineering things. So I like trying to like figure out how some things comes to be, how they could actually the modify API reference anyway. So from here, you can see to actually use any of their API resources here, you need to like authenticate. You need to like get an access token to authenticate yourself so that you can get access to the resource. So to actually get that authentication, that access token, so that you can use to authenticate yourself when making a request to any of these domain feature that we have here. So you need to like pass an authorization header with basic followed by a basic word, then uh encoded base64 API key and secret key. So that is, we'll have like basic, then base64 encoded of your API key and secret key. So that API key and secret key, how do you actually get that? Right. So that's something means like that's some keys that we need to like get. So we can actually get that if we are here to like authenticate or authorize ourselves to get access to the API secret key. So that's where the different strategy comes in. So they have one strategy for the web platform authentication, then the API different for the API platform authentication. So for the API for the web platform authentication, so you just need to create an account. So after creating an account, you log in without your email and password. Then you get an access token so that you can get access to this dashboard. So from this dashboard is where you can now go here to developer section so that you can get your API key. You can see your API key and access secret key. So these two keys are what we are going to like use. So we encode them, then we use them to log in. So instead of using our email and password, this is what we just need to use to actually get our access token so that we can make requests to those API reference resources that we have. So let's see that let's see how that actually works in code. So coming. So this is like the code implementation for the authentication strategy they have Monnify has for their website and their API reference. So this is for the website. So basically we have a filter chain here. So in Java, a filter chain is kind of like a middleware. So some kind of a middleware you have in Next.js, Express.js. So it will intercept any request coming to an endpoint. So it intercepts and does whatever you need to like do there. So this do filter internal is where we actually implement our logic for authentication, authorizing user, authenticating user. So here I have the interception of the request. So it intercept the request coming to this particular resource. So it has to like deal with this particular endpoint. So any endpoint that has this particular part, it will intercept that request and do what I have here, like the basic logic I have here. So it will intercept, get the bearer token that is actually coming with the header, which is like the access token that you have passed from your front end or client's application that you sent. So it will intercept it, decode, get the subject claims on that token. So it will do, so we'll see how that actually works anyway. So it will intercept that, do what I have here, basically all the things I have here. So after, if that is successful, then user has been authenticated. So let's see how that actually works. So here I'm getting the request. So if I get the request, like this is the request because I'm actually intercepting the request here. So this is the request object. So I'm intercepting the request, getting the authorization from the request, and now extracting the access token. So this is the access token I'm actually extracting from the request header, which is the access token they passed in. So after accessing, I'm extracting the so this particular GWT service dot get user email to decode the token, basically just like what GWTIA does. It will decode it and extract the subject that I have there. So let's see what this get user email actually does. So you can see it's get the token and extract the claim, which is like the subject. So let's see how we actually generate the token anyway. So the way we generate the token is like so. So we get the claims, then we set the subject as the username. So that's the subject. So we are basically getting the username from the GWT key. So when it's when it decode the token, so it's getting the username. So you can see, so basically the username is the email. So that's what we have on our users table. So let's kind of walk through what we have on the users table anyway. So the users table is here. So user entity, we have a getter, probably a setter here. A getter and setter that actually returns. So we have the get email. So it's actually returning the username. So you can see get username. So it's actually returning the user's email. So that's the email that we are actually getting from this filter chain. So this basically what this feature does is an authentication middleware, intercept request, gets the authorization header, decodes the token, extracts the user's email from the token, and verify. So it does the verification and authenticates the user. So if everything goes well, then it moves on to the next like controller. So it goes to the next resource that we have. So that's basically how they actually implement for the web. So for the because we said that okay, it has Monnify actually has two strategy. They have the web access token and the API access token. So for the access token for the API, basically also the same. So it gets intercept the request, but here they have different access token. So access token for the web is quite different from the access token for the API. So it's getting the access token from for the API and now decoding it. So it's now extracting the API key because I'm actually using the API key. We're actually using the API key for authorization here. So it's getting the API key. After getting the API key, checking if the API key exists. So if it exists, it loads the user by the API key and does all itself. So it's authorizing user based on that API key that it decodes. So let's see how this API key actually works from. So similar to get user email, it's extracting the claim, the subject claim, getting the API key. So let's see how we actually decode, how we actually encode for the API token. So it's encodes, it sets a subject of the user, then the get API key. So we can see the get API key here is a setter here. It's a getter, So it's a getter here that actually returns. So because we have like this beta annotation here, which is coming from Lombok, so it automatically creates a setter for this API key. So it's getting this API key that we have here. So that's for GWT auth filter for the API service. So anything API, so there's a different access token that has to be passed and verified to actually authenticate user. So that's basically what the filter chain does. So we can now go to security config and see how this middleware actually knows that this is going to, you need to like use this particular middleware for these resources and this for these resources. So basically this is what it does. So it checks just like we have here, we have request merchant, which is merchants, then anything that has to like that follows merchants for dot. So it's going to authenticate them with the middleware of JWT, the web platform access token. So it's going to use that web platform access token to actually authenticate user. For the API v1, so this is like the prefix. So it's going to look for the prefix of API v1 and verify as authorized user based on the access token that we pass for API. So this is where the actual implementation actually comes in anyway. So it's now saying, so we have like before filter here. So this before filter is going to like take this one. So it's going to like authenticate with the access token for the web. It's one we are getting for the merchant login. So it's going to get that for the API v1. It's going to like take the second DWT author feature, like the second middleware. So it's going to use that accordingly. So that's how the security filter, that's how the authentication strategy actually works. So they have different authentication system strategy for the web, different access tokens. So you can use access token you are getting from the web login with the API reference. That's different. So you need to like encode with the base for your API and a secret key. Then you get the access token. Then you use that access token to actually access all those resources. So that's how the authentication service actually works. So we'll see more of that and actually see how how we actually do this also in the authentication service and the controller. So let's go to the controller. So we can go here to the authentication controller. Here we have auth register. So this doesn't match anything. So when we go to our request, so everything, so this like they are permitted. So no authentication middleware should be applied to this particular prefix or URL. So anything auth, anything API v1 auth, don't need to like use any authentication middleware for that. So let's go back to our authorized authentication controller. So here we are getting the request payload, then just basically creating a user, so registering a user. So let's click on this authentication service, which actually registers a user. So here just declaring a simple initializing a simple token variable. Then we are building, like using the entity builder. So we get access to this builder because of the Lombok annotation we actually use on user entity, which is this data annotation. Yeah. So data annotation and this builder annotation. So we can actually use to actually, instead of using the new keyword and passing all those attributes inside the constructor, like new, then passing all those values. So we use the builder to actually build a new instance of the object. So let's go to the authentication, back to the authentication service. So we are using this builder. So instead of having new, then user, then username, email, first name, everything inside brackets. So we just use builder to create this instance of user entity. So we are now saving this user entity to the database. So after saving, because we need to like verify user's email, because that email is very important to us. So it's like a unique key. So we need to like verify the user email. So we are sending a general random OTP to the user's email using Redis. So Redis will actually, using Java mailer. So we are using Java mailer to actually send an email to user. So we are using Rabbit and RabbitMQ and Redis. So Redis will help us store the generated random OTP. Then after storing, create a map payload that will send the email to a user. So we are using this one because we don't want to have like a synchronous operation. So we want to like have an async operation. So just keep going. So we don't want to like delay things while a message is being sent. So we are just send this to a queue. So sending this to a queue will get the payload. So to get the object payload and send the mail to that particular user. So after that, so that's basically how the register actually works. Then, yeah, because we are actually sending back a token. So after users actually signed up, we need to like generate another authorization token. So we are using the user payload to actually generate a token. So let's see what this generate token actually does. So it takes in the user details, generate the token with the user details, and return the new generator token from the GWT service that we have here. So you can see we have this, what we have, getting the user email from the user details. So we now generate the token. So that's basically for registration for the authentication service. So for the login So this is where I mean, this is like the most of the fun part for um, of the app. So we have the authentication for logging in. So for the logging in, just like I said, we use the password and email for the merchant, basically the website, web platform authentication. So we use the email and password. So when user passing the email and password, are getting this login. So this is login detail. So like data transfer objects. So whatever. So how you need to like transfer objects from the client to the server. So you're getting the email and the password. So from the email and the password, you're just extracting the email and the password from the TTU. So then checking if just trying to like get the user. So when if the user exists, then I'm now generating token for that particular user. So I can send back that token. Now, okay, this person has been verified and I've generated a token for the person. So that's for this. So you can see this token generated here. We are using the email as a subject of that token. So that's why this one is different. This particular login is different from the API login authentication. So for the API login authentication, so based on what we have on Monnify reference page, so we can see that they are not actually using a request body. So they are just sending an header, then a post request without data. So we are not sending any data. So just an header with this particular stuff. So with this API key, client key, basic word, and your encoded API key and your secret key, then bam, you get your access token. So that's it. So that's what we're actually doing here. So here we are getting this token. So this access token that we are getting from the request header. So we'll see that this is coming from the controller anyway. So we are decoding because this has been encoded. We need to like decode it based on basis 4 because that's what Monnify actually does here. Says on its API reference platform. So you are decoding. So after decoding, you do series of decoding stuff. We are not splitting because we are actually the way we encode it is like such. We encode it like this. So it needs to like get the API key, then column the secret. So after decoding, so this is what we get back. We get the API key, column the secret key. So we now need to like deal with the API key. So the API key, remember, we use the API key to we set the API key as a subject for generating token for the API. So that's what we use for the access token for the API reference. So we are using, so let's go, let's just see, let's go back to our JW2 service so we can see how we are actually generating token API. So let's generate token API. So here we are generating token API. So we are using the user API. So that's why we need the API there. So that's why we need to like extract the API that we're getting from here. So we need to like split. So the first part is like the API part. So which is API column the client's key. So then we are now finding user by that API key. So if the user doesn't exist, that means the user doesn't exist. So after that, then we are now generating a token based on the user we found. So the token will now be used to actually authenticate user. So basically, that's it. That's how you need to how you get your authentication key to get yourself authenticated to use all those resources that we have on Monnify API reference page. So that's basically it. So let's just see like a demo how it actually works. So let me stop this. All right, so let's test the endpoints. Let's see. So our server is actually running on port 8200. So because I've already registered, so I'll just go to login merchants. So this is login merchants API endpoints. So now let's log in our merchant. So from what we see the code, so we need to like pass in our email, then what's it called, password, right? So let's pass in our email and password so that we can actually log in to get the access token. So let's ensure our server is running, then click send. Okay, so we have this access token now. So we use this access token to get our API key because this is secured as well. So we need to like get our access token. So because of time, so I'll just use the access token I already have. So this just takes in authorization ended and sent an OTP. So let's just see how that actually works. Takes this merchant's login access code. So yeah. an OTP has been sent to the email, but here I'm just sending this just to get something easily, so I won't actually have to like go to my email all the time. So, but let's see, we can also see so that we can be sure that it actually sends the email. Okay. Let's see. All right, so here it is. So this is the access token that we received. So your OTP code is 3896. So just with what we have here, 3896. Yeah. So we have that. So we can now send this thing, this token. So we can just verify. So let's add our access token. So this access token, remember, this is just for merchants. So this is not for API. So you can use this access token for our API reference. So we need to like get those API keys so that we can encode them. So I think it's 3896, 3896. Is that what we have? Let's confirm. Yes, 3896. Boom. Let's get our, yeah, so we have our API key and our secret key. So this is what we need to like use. So let me just go to a platform where we can easily encode. So we use this basis for encoder, then column. So we need to like, because that's what we have. That's what Monnify asked us to do. So let's go back to VS Code, get the secret key. Here's the secret key. Go back to the web. Yeah, so yes, this is what we need to like do. So let's encode this, and now, yes, so this is our encoded key. So it does encode these two stuff together. So let's go back and log in, API login now. So API login, you can see we are not actually sending anybody. We didn't send any request body. So just a request, an header with authorization header, then basic, then space our encoded API key and secret key, just what we have on API Monnify API reference page. So we can see you need to like encode your API key and your secret key, then you can now log in. So let's log in now to get our access token that we can use. Boom. So this is our access token we used to authenticate ourselves for all this Monnify API reference page. Okay, so let's try to like see if this access token will actually, if the one we got from this login here would actually authenticate us or not. So let's go to, let me just copy the access token I have here first and try to initialize a transaction. So I have my body we have here. So let me just pass in authorization, then use this particular access token. This is the access token for the merchant, like the web platform. So you can see there will be, we should have an error, but let's see. Let's just change this customer email. Okay, let me see. We don't have any ambiguity here. Let me just change this reference because this has to be unique. Let's see. Boom. Oh, there's an issue here. Boom, boom, boom. All right, so let's now confirm. So we're using the access token for the login, merchant login. So let's see now. So you can see we are getting unauthorized here. So likewise, we will use for what's it called? The API. We're using the merchant access token for the API. We'll get the same thing. So basically, that's it. All right, so that's that. Now let's use this access token. So instead of using the merchant one, let's use this original access token that we generated for the API. So let's use this. Let's confirm. Let's send the request with
All right, it says since let's use this. Get this. Go back to our initialize transaction. Go use that. Let's go back to our body and send this request. Boom, voila. So you can now see we have access to we have access to all these endpoints based uh, with our newly generated access token with the API and our secret key being encoded into blah blah blah, some cryptic alphanumeric characters. So yes, that's it. So that's basically it for the authentication part. Now we'll move ahead and go through the other domains such as the transactions, sub account, reserve account creation, and whatnot that we have on Monnify reference page. All right, it's been nice. So see you in the next chapter. Thank you.